Okay, I think I'll just do Dahlia for the moment. And if I get a chance to record more later before I go to work, I'll do Campfire Cooking in Another World. Did I even hit record? Yes, I did. Okay. I scared myself for a second. I was like, wait, I gotta make sure I'm recording because I don't want to get to the end and then say... and then find it wasn't even recording. Okay. There were plenty of stalls serving pale and dark ale, but Dahlia couldn't see ruby ale advertised anywhere. So her search took her a little further away than intended. When she finally found one, someone was already being served there, so she stepped into line a few paces back. Hey, miss. A man nearby called out to an acquaintance, she presumed, glancing over toward the other stalls until a hand suddenly clapped on her on the shoulder. She turned around in the direction of the road to see a man with blue eyes and red hair just like hers, grinning at her. She had never seen him before in her life. Yeah, I'm talking to you. Can I help you? She asked, plainly assuming he wanted directions or something. You here alone? No, I have company. A girl? No, a man. What kind of man sends his girl out to buy the drinks? Why don't you ditch him and come have lunch with me? My treat. No, thank you. If you'll excuse me, I don't wish to keep him waiting. She assumed that would be the end of the conversation, approaching the stall to order the ruby ales, when the man suddenly grabbed her wrist in a tight, slightly painful grip. Dude, she said no. Get the hint or you're gonna get a freezing spell with her bracelet. Or, more than likely, Volp is gonna show up and kick your ass. Or at least intimidate you. Which actually would be funny to see. Look, I can't help thinking it's fate us meeting here like this. You sure we can't take some time to get to know each other? Yes, sir, I'm very sure. You're hurting me, so please let go of my hand. If you don't, I'll have to defend myself. His hand still clenched around her wrist, the man leaned in to murmur in her ear. I'd love to see you try. Sounds adorable. You're gonna get frozen. And it would be all your fault. The tickle of his warm breath against her ear, reeking of alcohol, made her shudder. Come on, just put your hand in mine and we'll give that loser the slip. He tugged on her wrist, trying to pull her into his chest. She managed to dig her high heels into the ground and resist, but she dropped the empty mugs in her hand, and her handbag slipped from under her arm. Dahlia held her breath, and with her right hand, she clenched the bangle around her wrist and swung it down toward the ground. It was a loud shunk, and in an instant, a pure white pillar of ice shot up between Dahlia and the red-haired man. The man stumbled backward in shock, falling on his backside. Goddamn mages! Was all he hissed before scrambling to his feet and making a run for it. Magical toolmaker, actually. Dahlia muttered after him. She was relieved that no one had come to harm. Lying on the ground before her, having toppled over, was a pillar of ice, 15 centimeters in diameter and 80 centimeters in length. Her modified phrasing bangle had served her well. I'm very sorry about that. Dahlia bowed her head to the woman running the stall in front of her. Oh, no, dear, don't be. You were fantastic. It's me who should apologize. I should have sent that full packing myself. An elderly woman replied, waving her hands. And where were you, young fella? Oh, so Volp walked up at this point. Dahlia turned to see Volp, his black coat around his shoulders, picking her hand back up off the ground. He must have wondered what was taking so long and became worried. I'm so sorry I didn't come sooner. I never should have left you to go alone. It's all right. Look, I'm fine. Dahlia couldn't stand to see the young knight looking like that, like a dog with dolefully drooping ears. Oh, I'm just thinking about that thing so cute. So sad. I'll, just move this ice out of the way, she said. Leave it there, the kindly vendor told her. I can step around it. It'll soon melt away in the sunshine anyway, and I wouldn't want you dirtying your nice clothes. All right, that's very kind of you. Wait there a moment, dear. The woman shuffled away into the back of her stall for a moment, reappearing with 2 freshly poured mugs of ruby ale in the largest size. There we go, these are on the house. Oh no, I couldn't. They're free samples, especially for you two. If you like them, come on back with your boyfriend and buy some more, eh? Oh, she assumed, obviously. I mean, I can understand. I mean, the guy is very attractive. That's so kind, thank you. I'll be sure to come again with my friend. Ah, your friend? She turned to Volp with a sympathetic smile. Good luck, young fella. I think she knew what he was up to. I think she knew because, yeah, somebody pointed this out. I didn't realize it when I was reading it that the poison ring that he bought, at first, I thought it was for himself. I mean, logically speaking, you would think it was for him, you know, with work. And the fact that he got poisoned by that wyvern before, I can understand him wanting, you know, to avoid that. But it should have clicked to me when he had gotten those anklets, because the anklets had poison prevention on them. So he got the ring for her. I think he does like her. What she was wishing him luck for was a mystery to Dahlia. You're dumb. How do you not realize that something might be going on? It was only as she reached out to take the mugs that she became aware of the trembling of her hands and the rapid pounding of her heart. That was the moment she learned that some types of fear took time to set in. Sorry, Volf, could you take these? Of course, I'm so sorry about this. Volf noticed her shakiness, his air of gloom growing heavier. They walked back to the park side by side. I'm truly sorry, Dahlia. I should have insisted on going. How can I call myself a knight when it wasn't even there to protect you? I mean, technically, if you hadn't gone to get the ale, if he had gone to get the ales, she could have still encountered that situation just sitting there on the park bench. So either way, if he had gone alone or she had gone alone, she could have encountered that anyway. So I think that the best solution would have been for them to both go get him. Please don't let it bother you. It was just a bit of bad luck. Besides, I'm perfectly fine. Of course you're not. How could I let someone frighten you like that? I should have known someone might try to hit on you. I never even considered it. No one's ever done that to me because you were essentially looking... Tobias was making you look unattractive, essentially. Why? I guess because his insecure-looking ass was thinking that if you were looking your best, someone might actually woo you away from him. Which, I don't know why he was caring about that in the first place, considering he was wooed away by Emilia before. So, yeah. What? You mean, never? Dahlia couldn't help giggling at Volf's expression of utter disbelief. I don't blame him, considering how attractive she is, but then again, that was back when her hair was brown, her glasses were unattractive, her clothing was unattractive. I mean... Well, her glasses probably weren't unattractive, but... Because you could find some really attractive glasses out there, I'm sure, but... The way that she was being made to dress and look... He was trying to make her unattractive. Trying to make her blend in, essentially. And not be noticed. Because, like I said, maybe he was worried that if she looked her best, like she normally does, like now... Somebody would try to steal her away from her away from him, because it wasn't even a love relationship. It was a bit like a arranged marriage type thing. She was telling the truth. That had been the first time in both her lives that someone had tried to chat her up. Nope, never. Not once. That was the first time a man's ever approached me on the street. Isn't makeup amazing? Wait, Dahlia, I approached you on the street just the other day. Huh? But that was different. You were looking for me, not trying to hit on me, right? Oh, was he? Was he wanting to hit on her, but she was just too clueless to figure it out? Oh. Dahlia, you are... Why is it every single female protagonist I've seen... Or not every single, but at least a couple of them that I've seen, The Saint's magic power is omnipotent. This one, shoot, well, there were probably others. Let me know if there were any others besides mine, obviously, where she was essentially clueless about Ferdinand's feelings for her. That was another one. If there are any others, let me know, please. I suppose so. Oh, he was, and I think he just got shot down without even realizing it. Anyway, let's drink these ales while they're nice and cold. They returned to the picnic bench in the park, where they toasted each other and finally relaxed once again. The ruby ale was deliciously fruity. It had held its chill even better than expected and went down very smoothly. Was that the freezing bangle you used earlier? That's right, I modified it myself. I tried angling it down so it didn't hit him, but it's quite difficult to aim. He deserved to get frozen solid. I agree! I completely agree! I could hardly have called the guards on him just for grabbing my hand, though. You know, I bet if you could adjust the ice magic in just the right way, you could improvise some kind of ice sword. You could put that on a sword? Oh boy. Hold on. Did I skip a page? No, I already... Okay. You could put that on a sword? Just as planned, Dahlia had triggered off Volf's magical sword complex. Hoping to brighten his mood, she pressed on. I'm not sure exactly how you could go about adjusting it on a sword, but I don't see why a simple freezing enchantment wouldn't work. Though with my level of magic, I'm afraid all you'd get is a sword that stays cold for a long time, probably. That actually wouldn't be that bad. Maybe. Might be nice to lay my head on it night during summer expeditions. Volf, the freezing enchantment would go on the blade. Sleep on that and you'll lose your head. And then my sins would be atoned for and I would rest in peace forevermore. Not on my watch. She had either better get used to shouting at him like this or give up on it altogether, but somehow the conversations always ended up straying in some strange direction. Once their mugs of ruby ale were finally empty, Volf asked, I want to drop into a weapon shop and pick up a short sword on the way back. Would you like to wait in a cafe nearby, or is there some other shop you'd like to visit? Is there some reason I can't go with you? You don't mind going to a weapon shop? Not at all. I've always wanted to take a peek inside one. Father never allowed me to, though, you see. That's surprising. From what I've heard of your father, I thought he'd encourage you to go and take notes. He always said I'd go into a daze and end up cutting my hand off or something. Well, I guess weapons are made to be dangerous after all. Plus, it's mostly men in their shops. I can see why he'd be concerned. It was partly my fault, too. I realize that now. Dahlia stared at the trees across the park with a faraway gaze. The green of the fresh leaves was almost dazzling vivid at this time of year. When I was in college, I said to him, I'm old enough to go to a weapon shop on my own now. The very next day, I burned my hands on a slime. After that, he absolutely forbade me from ever going to a weapon shop alone, and I promised I wouldn't. Well, you wouldn't be going to a weapon shop alone this time. You'd be going with Wolf. Burned on a slime? Ah, when you were developing your waterproof cloth. Yes, I'd powdered each kind of slime, and I was trying them out on different combinations and proportions of chemicals. It was the morning after an all-nighter. I was half asleep, to be honest. I should have been using a glass spatula, but instead I just put gloves on and mixed the slime with my hands. Slimes have acid strong enough to turn people and animals into soup. Right, and whatever I mixed this one with only enhanced it. It turned highly corrosive and ate right through my gloves. But that was only the start. The slime I was working with was black slime. Unlike blue slime, it doesn't lose its paralyzing properties when powdered. My hands went completely numb and I couldn't move them. I couldn't feel anything at all, never mind pain. I think I see where this is going. Wolf looked down despairingly, his forehead resting in the palm of his left hand. I realized I couldn't handle it on my own, so I called Father and told him there was something wrong with my hands. He pulled them out of the bucket and poured a potion on them, then took me straight to the temple in a carriage. He kept my hands wrapped up in a sheet the whole time, and even at the temple they treated me without letting me see them. So I have no idea how bad the burns were. Dahlia, how much did they ask for the donation? I think it was 2 gold. Yeah, those were no burns. If it took that much, even after a potion, your fingers had probably dissolved right down to the bone. Huh? The temple doesn't ask for gold unless it's a serious injury. It's no joke. Really? Dahlia was taken aback. Yeah, you should have known something was wrong if your dad wouldn't let you see what it looked like. Because if it wasn't too bad, he wouldn't have had him kept wrapped up like that. No matter how often she asked her father about it, all he told her was that she'd sustained some nasty burns. Sometimes when people are seriously hurt and see their own bones or blood, the shock alone can be enough to kill them. I'm sure that was why your father kept your hands wrapped up. Even knights are killed by slimes now and then. Black slimes are the most dangerous of all. They're resistant to fire, water, and air magic, and they're damn near impossible to get off once they have a hold of you. They cling that tightly, and they're resistant to all those kinds of magic? Dahlia, that's not the point I'm making. She'd never seen Wolf's golden eyes glimmer so coldly before. That stare was unbearable. She was ready to beg him to stop. If you got a wound like that while you were on your own, you'd struggle to even get out of the tower. You don't do dangerous things like that anymore, right? No, not anymore. That had been a proper scolding. He was quite a different person when he turned serious like that. While Dahlia sat there nodding meekly, Wolf launched into a long lecture on the dangers of slimes until he suddenly put a hand up to his mouth in surprise. I'm sorry, Dahlia. I shouldn't be getting so worked up. No, it's all right. I know now not to take slimes so lightly. If her injuries had really been that bad, it was no wonder her father had been worried sick about her. She understood now why he barred her from visiting weapon shops unaccompanied. You know, I think I get why you always look so concerned when I talk about being a scarlet armor, except in my case, I start nagging. It was a moment of self-reflection and mutual understanding for the both of them, but that wasn't to say it felt bad. With the shop finally empty of customers, Flores stroked his white beard as he contemplated taking his lunch break. It was then that the doorbell rang once again. The door swung open somewhat slower than usual and stayed held there. Through the doorway appeared a young woman who could hardly have looked more out of place in a weapon shop. Behind her followed the one who'd been holding the door, a tall young man with dark hair. Not many of his customers had the fine manners to hold open the old oak door to let a lady go ahead. Did he have a steamed noble on his doorstep? I'm not running a curiosity shop for you lovebirds to amuse yourselves in. Oh, of course he's going to think that. Flores wanted to say, but he put his inner grumblings aside and greeted the pair in the manner expected of a shopkeeper. Welcome. They politely returned the greeting. To his surprise, he recognized the young man with who looks most women only saw in their dreams. He'd visited before. With his black hair and golden eyes, he brought to mind the panthers of the southern grasslands. In Flores' opinion, the lad could do with putting on some muscle, though. At his height, he ought to be capable of holding a greatsword. The young woman he assumed was just tagging along. She had strikingly red hair and a fairly pretty face that was nicely made up. The cool tones of her outfit, a pale blue top and deep blue skirt, contrasted her fiery hair. It was an eye-catching style. Flores found her especially elegant to look at from behind. Oh, I see. Don't be staring, dude. The pair made their way around the shop, inspecting the wet wares. Every time something caught the woman's emerald eyes, the man would instantly scan all around her for dangers. Flores couldn't help a silent chuckle to himself as he watched the man was clearly determined not to let her get a single scratch. He looked like a knight guarding a precious princess. He probably is at this point. After a few minutes, they came up to the counter. Flores fully expected it was the young man who had something to buy, but instead it was the red-haired woman who gave him a small bow and spoke. I apologize for interrupting your work. I'm looking for a short sword suitable for enchanting. A reasonable priced one that can be disassembled, ideally. Might you have such a thing? Sure, I'll get you some. His voice came out a little high-pitched. He wasn't used to such polite manners. The majority of Flores' customers were adventurers. Men and women alike tended to be rough-spoken and didn't bother much with niceties. Customers like this young woman were few and far between. He had laid 3 short swords upon a table for her to look at. Her green eyes lit up, almost sparkling, as she eagerly leaned in to examine them. For some reason, he was reminded of the expression his cat made whenever he got a new toy. You can go ahead and draw them, he said. The woman reached out to do so, but stopped short of touching the sword. She glanced to her right, wondering what the matter was. Flores followed her gaze and saw the tall man beside her looking at her with intense worry. It all seemed rather peculiar. She wasn't a child, after all. And no one would cut themselves all that easily on short swords like these. She had to be a noble woman traveling incognito, or perhaps just amusing herself. Only that would explain why the man was so overprotective. Not really. If you knew their stories, you would understand. Nonetheless, the woman soon reached out and carefully drew each blade in turn. They were only cheap short swords, yet she handled them as though each one were a priceless treasure. It's a strange sight to the shopkeeper. Do you know the origin of the iron used to forge these? She suddenly asked, taking Flores by surprise. As the owner of a weapon shop, he was of course always happy to discuss his wares, but the kinds of questions this woman had about the raw materials and assembly of these swords wouldn't come from any ordinary young lady. Looking closely, he now noticed that her nails were trimmed short and her fingers somewhat chapped. He remembered her mentioning enchanting when she first approached him and decided to inquire. You wouldn't happen to be a mage, would you? Or an alchemist? No, I'm a magical toolmaker, she replied with a smile. Even the man behind her had a small smile on his lips. Magical toolmakers were often placed one rung below mages and alchemists, but those two at least seemed to consider it a worthy occupation. And why not, he thought. I'd like 2 of this type, please. If it's possible to buy hilts, guards, and scabbards separately? Sure you can. The sword the woman chose after much deliberation was the shortest of the 3 with a red hilt. What was it with women in choosing the cheapest possible blades without so much as a maker's mark? Her companion tried to recommend one of the more expensive ones to her, but she stood firm. I've got other short swords you can enchant, the kind where the hilt attaches with screws, Flores said. The young woman was keen to see those two, so he brought them out from the back. Once again, she began peppering him with questions about the materials and the screws. He answered them all as best he could. Her curiosity satisfied, she smiled broadly and turned to him. I'll have 2 of these as well, please. Plus 2 each of the screws, hilts, guards, and scabbards. There wasn't a great deal of coin in it for Flores, but he found himself oddly satisfied with the deal. He soon realized the reason. When she was questioning him, in fact, even now, she looked at him with the respectful gaze one would give a teacher or master. It was enough to make a man blush. Her companion paid the bill and looked delighted to do so. He'd never seen a man look so pleased while buying weapons chosen by a woman. Just what sort of enchantments was she going to put on these things? Who were they for? If the opportunity arose, he'd be sure to ask her. Come again. Thank you, we will. But that the pair left just as before, the young man held the door open for his lady companion, following what she had passed through. Somehow Flores found it rather charming to watch this time. He didn't know what their relationship was, but there was one thing he felt strangely sure of. Someday, that fine-featured lad would be wrapped around that woman's little finger. He probably is right. He's probably right about that. Oh my god. Okay, dang, only 20 minutes. I've been reading for 20 minutes, didn't even realize it. Okay, friends. Dahlia didn't know whether it was due to the stress of yesterday's encounter with Tobias, the sheer delight she felt in the magical tool shops, or the shock of that man trying to chat her up, but she went on a veritable shopping spree on the way home. Piled in front of her was one bag containing the 4 swords and fittings from the weapon shop, 2 boxes of food, a case containing half a dozen bottles each of red and white wine, and of course there was the man who carried it all as though it were light as a feather. Not to imply that she'd bought him, of course. She intended to buy all of this herself and let Volf carry it, but in order to assuage his guilt at not being able to help her when she was harassed at the park, he insisted on paying for it all and wouldn't listen to any of her protests. Her final resort had been to question whether this was proper behavior for the son of an earl, only for him to reply that if that was her concern, she should give him this opportunity to restore his honor. That was when she'd had to admit defeat, outsmarted. Volf had kept his hood up the whole time, sweat glistening on his brow as he hauled the goods. Dahlia was immensely grateful to him. Do you want me to take it inside or just leave it in the entrance? The young knight asked as they stood just outside the door of the Green Tower. The sky behind it would soon be turning golden with the sunset. Dahlia's old self would have had him leave the goods in the entrance and happily bid him farewell, drawing their day to a close. That would be the safest thing, the proper thing to do. However, it wasn't what she wanted to do. The least she could do was give him a drink, and she wanted more time to talk, just the two of them. Dahlia had no interest in romance anymore. But she did want to be his friend. Oh, he's getting friend-zoned! No! Hopefully hopefully he wins her over. Oh my god. She deserves to be happy. And I wouldn't even count the whole Tobias thing as a romance anyway. That was more like a colleague thing. That said, she couldn't ignore the small chance that Volf was not as trustworthy as she'd assumed. She was well aware that she had to be careful. One wrong move could get her a reputation around town as an easy woman. Even so, she felt confident in her decision. My living room's on the 2nd floor. Do you think you could take it up there? No problem. Volf jogged up the stairs as though completely unburdened by the bags and boxes. Dahlia opened the door for him and turned on the brightness of the magical lantern inside. Do you have any family or servants living with you? No, I live alone. I appreciate you inviting me inside, Dahlia, but you do understand it's not safe for a single woman to bring a man into her house, right? Of course I do. I don't let just anyone in here, you know. It was either this or carry all these things up here on my own. Besides, aren't you at least a tiny bit happy that there's no one else here? She retorted, making a point of blaming the situation on the merchandise. After all, what gorgeous butterfly with a whole meadow of flowers to flutter in would choose to alight on some wilting grass by the roadside? Huh? What's the metaphor for? I'm kind of confused. Well, to be honest, yes. It means we can talk as long as we like without being interrupted. If you don't feel safe, you can tie my hands and feet and leave me on the floor. You can sit in a chair while I'll be down on the floor. I can look up at you as we chat. Dude, you're just making it worse! Oh my god! I'm not going to treat you like some bandit, Dahlia replied dismayed. How could they possibly talk like that? Alright, then you can stay in the tower. I'll stand outside and we can talk through the window. How about that? I can't yell at you all night long. I'll lose my voice. She was already shouting as it was. She'd spent all that time fretting and agonizing over whether to bring him into the tower. She wanted to grab a megaphone and yell into Volf's ear to give her that time back. Volf, meanwhile, just stood there with that silly, unbecoming grin like a little boy who pulled off a prank. Look, I'm going to put the kettle on, so please just sit down unless you'd prefer white wine. If it's all the same, I would have loved some wine, actually. I'll fix a little something to eat, too. That's really kind of you, thank you. Wolf sounded terribly apologetic, but they hadn't eaten since they got their lunch from the street stalls, after all, and he'd carried the heavy wares all the way here. So anybody would be peckish after that. For the moment, she had him take a seat on the living room sofa. She fetched him a damp towel and placed some white wine and crackers on the table, then left him to wipe away his sweat and take a few moments' rest while she headed to the kitchen. She took the newly bought loaf of white bread, plus some rye bread, sausages, and other ingredients from her larder. She sliced some vegetables into small pieces and tossed them into a small pot to boil along with the sausages. In another pot, she tossed 2 kinds of cheese, a splash of white wine, and a sprinkle of black pepper and grated nutmeg. Once the vegetables were cooked, she plated them along with the sliced bread and sausages, then carried everything to the living room. She called Wolf to come sit at the table. In the middle of this table sat Dahlia's magical stove, and upon it the small pot filled with gooey melted cheese. Ever since she perfected her compact magical stove, Dahlia had been itching to make cheese fondue. The little stove made it so easy to prepare. Is this a cheese soup? Wolf was looking at the pot with a thoroughly perplexed expression. He clearly never encountered cheese fondue before. Now that she thought of it, while she'd seen dishes served with the topping of melted cheese here in the real capital, Dahlia had yet to come across cheese being used as a dip. It was possible she just created this world's very first fondue. It is cheese, but it's not a soup. More like a sauce, I suppose. You dip the bread and vegetables into it. She handed Wolf a long skewer and a plate before giving him a demonstration. She tried it out with a piece of bread first. It was excellent. Her usual red wine would pair very nicely with this indeed. Dahlia offered some bread to the increasingly wide-eyed young man. Here, try a small piece to begin with. With extreme care, Wolf submerged a piece of bread into the melted cheese. He held up his plate to stop any dripping onto the table before quickly taking a bite of the cheese-smothered white bread. For several seconds, he was completely still. Then he silently began to chew, taking far longer than was normal. Once he finally swallowed, he let out a satisfied sigh and eagerly skewered a second piece of bread. How is it? Dahlia knew he liked white bread, cheese, and strong flavors. Or white wine, cheese, and strong flavors. Judging by how the first bite had gone down, it seemed unthinkable that he wouldn't like this cheese fondue, but still. How have I never heard of this before? He didn't need to sigh quite so dramatically. It was cheese, not a drug. And she would very much appreciate it if he would open his eyes and stop making that face like he was in the throes of pure ecstasy. This is incredible. It's so good. You can enjoy it by yourself or with a group of friends. I definitely recommend it. As long as you have cheese, wine, and bread, you can make it easily. Where do they sell this thing underneath? The compact magical stove? You can buy it from the Merchants Guild or a magical tool shop in town. You bet I will. Hold on, this isn't one of your innovations, is it? It is. The small version is, anyway. The large one already exists. When someone created a small version of an already existing invention, there were 2 possible arrangements. The original creator could receive half of the profits, or the small version could be treated as a completely new invention. It depended on when the original invention had been registered with the Merchants Guild. If the small version was registered within 7 years of the original invention's registration, the original creator would receive half of the profits. If 8 or more years had passed, the small version would be considered a new invention. As it happened, the magical stove had been around for 30 years or so already, so Dahlia's compact version was an example of the latter case. It'd be great if I could take this on an expedition. I'd need to get permission first, though. I'm sure bread's a given, but are you allowed to take wine, too? Yeah, we get to take a decent supply along in wineskins. We get a very healthy diet when we're on the move. It's pretty much just rye bread and soup with dried vegetables and meat. There's cheese, nuts, and dried fruit for snacks. That's about it. I see. It made sense from the standpoint of what was light and easy to transport, but she could imagine a diet like that would soon get tiresome. It wasn't as though it were impossible to make cheese fondue over a campfire, but you could burn it very easily. Sometimes if there's a village or a town nearby, we can get a good meal there. The monsters we hunt tend to be out along the border or in the mountains, though. We catch animals and monsters to eat now and then, but the best we can do is roast them with a little salt and pepper. If I had this stove and some cheese, I'd reckon even that bread could taste good. Wolf spoke between bites of cheesy bread and sausages. The bottle of white wine had already been drained to the last drop. Glancing down at the plate, however, Dahlia saw that he had not been greedy. He had taken nothing from her half of the plate. If he liked it so much, though, she was happy for him to enjoy his fill. Please, Wolf, have as much as you like. There's more where this came from. I've hardly even started on all the food you bought me today. That's really kind. I'll leave you a gilt silver. Don't be silly. If you're going to insist on that, then I'll pay you for introducing me to the goddess's right eye. I couldn't accept that. Oswald was waiting for you anyway. But I'd never have gone at all if you hadn't been with me. Maybe not, but still. Before he could say another word, Dahlia thrust a bottle of white wine into his hand. Open this and eat up. I'll go get us some more. Right, thanks, Dahlia. A few minutes later, Dahlia returned with second helpings, and the pair continued their meal as the conversation turned to the soon-to-be enchanted short swords. When it came time to clean up, Volf was the first one to get up from the table, carrying the plates and pots new to the kitchen for her, and even getting it all washed up in no time. Dahlia was quite shocked. Must be all that time camping out in the wilds. Possibly. By the time they'd finished their meal, night had already drawn in. The pale moon gleamed brightly outside the open window while a cool evening breeze wafted in. Shall I bring us another bottle? Dahlia proposed. To be honest, I'm of two minds. Half of me wants to stay and chat. The other half says it's time I got out of your hair and went home, Volf replied, looking a little uneasy. Commoners are more or less free to keep company with who we like, when we like, but how about you? I'm totally free. I've gone out with friends and stayed at the bar all night before. As far as commoners were concerned, the royal capital was very permissive in terms of love and relationships. Many households allowed lovers and fiancés to go traveling together. Some couples lived together before marrying, and some raised a family without ever formally registering their marriage. Huh. Why is she bringing this up if she doesn't think that he would be interested? Others enjoyed romance and friendship while staying single all their lives. Affairs, divorces, remarriages, and dramatic lovers' quarrels were all part of daily life. So, they both broke the awkward silence at the same time, only to let it fall again. After a few seconds, it was Volf who again volunteered to revive the conversation. So, at the risk of sounding incredibly rude here, I have to ask you something. Are you expecting me to make a move in that sense, I mean? Oh no, there's this conversation. Dahlia, please don't reject him. At least tell him you're not ready for a relationship right now, obviously, because of the whole Tobias thing. But don't slam the door shut on it entirely. Because eventually, I'm assuming those two will end up together. It's like a slow burn type thing where he gets to know her more over time until they finally decide they want to try something, you know? I'm hoping that's the case. Not at all, Dahlia answered immediately. She looked Volf in the eye and asked him a question in turn. I'm assuming that she means that she doesn't expect him to do anything with her because she thinks of him as just a friend, or I'm hoping that she's just thinking that it's too soon to do anything like that. She's not expecting him to try anything. Obviously, he's a gentleman, so he probably wouldn't if she didn't want him to. Are you expecting me to flirt with you? No, I'm really truly sorry. I had to ask that question at all. I know that you wasn't what you were after. I just couldn't convince myself that a woman would invite me into her home without any other intentions. I apologize too. I knew you were an honorable man, but I did consider that I might be putting myself in danger. The pair found themselves bowing to each other in apology. It would have been a funny sight to anyone looking in. Don't get me wrong. I think you're a very attractive woman, Dahlia. You're pretty, you're smart, you're fun to talk to. Volf paused there, touching the back of his hand to his lips for a moment. Then switching tack, he continued, I assume I'm right in I'm saying I'm not your type at all, actually. Or anyway. I mean, I really took advantage of your kindness the first time we met, then today. I sent you off alone to buy our drinks. I couldn't protect you from that pest, and now I'm sponging a meal off of you. Not really, considering you were just talking, and neither of you guys had anything to eat, so I mean, of course you're gonna eat something. I've been a pretty weak excuse for a man. I don't think so, Volf. I find you very attractive as well. It's just not so much a matter of type with me, though. I've just broken off my engagement after all, and I have my work to interest me. Yeah, she's not interested in one right now. That's probably not to say that she won't be later, though. Just keep getting to know her, and maybe something will bloom over time. Dahlia and bloom. As she cast her mind back on everything that had happened recently, Dahlia calmly spoke her thoughts aloud. I just can't see myself falling in love anymore. I don't even think you... Did you even fall in love in the first place with Tobias? That's what I'm wondering. Did you even fall in love in the first place? Or are you just thinking you did? Nor can I. I'd rather spare myself the trouble. Really? I would think that he would have been interested in her at least a little bit. Or is he just saying that to not make things awkward? Having laid their thoughts bare, both Wolf and Dahlia looked as though a load had been taken off their shoulders. Their gazes met, and they smiled wryly at each other without a word. There was no spark of love in their eyes. Well, duh, they just met not long ago. Of course there's not going to be any love yet. That can take time, you know? Though sometimes some people whirlwind romances, but not these two, apparently. Dahlia could now summon the courage to ask Wolf the question that had been on her mind since they first met. Shall we be friends, Wolf? Two friends who while away the hours talking about magical tools and swords. We shall, Dahlia. I'll drink to that. I'm assuming that's for now, at least. Because Dahlia does deserve to have someone who would love and cherish her just as much as she probably would, and that obviously isn't Tobias. I'm assuming it'll be Wolf at some point. Obviously not now. This is like a slow burn type thing. I would assume. Unless the author has come forward and said that those two are never going to be together. I don't know. Wolf beamed with the widest smile she'd ever seen from him. They opened a new bottle of white wine and toasted their friendship. A second toast to magical tools and swords followed that one, only for them to crack open both their glasses quite spectacularly. Wolf apologized endlessly and promised he'd bring Dahlia a new pair of wine glasses. Oops. Next time he visited, sitting across from each other at the table, they each poured themselves a new glass of wine, one white, one red. I finally met a woman I could talk to as a friend. Yeah, considering all the women you've talked to before have been essentially falling in love with you because of your looks. Wolf reclined on the sofa opposite Dahlia. The tension that had stiffened his shoulders earlier had completely melted away. She probably looked just the same, Dahlia thought as she took up her glass. You make it sound as though you don't have many friends. You're right, I don't. I was only joking. I feel bad now. Is that just how it is for nobles? No, I think it's just the fact that he doesn't have many female friends. Considering, his good looks. No, it's not that. I don't particularly have trouble making friends, but sooner or later we end up falling out over a woman. It was especially bad when I was in college. Was it, like a love triangle situation? Wolf didn't answer right away. He slightly tilted his wine glass, watching the surface of the pale amber liquid as it glimmered. Then he closed his enchanting golden eyes and smiled somewhat coldly. The girl my friend loved wanted me instead. Friendship over. Everyone's still so young in college. My friend's girlfriend fell in love with me. Friendship over. I can see why that would have been hard for him. A girl started dating my friend, only to get to me. Friendship over. Oh no! Poor guy! He deserves to have friends. I can't believe someone would go that far. My friend's little sister confessed to me, even though she was already engaged. When I turned her down, she told my friend I was the one who'd been trying to seduce her. He believed her and came and punched me in the face. Friendship over. Just how many friends have you lost this way? That would be enough to traumatize anybody. From those experiences alone, it was clear that Wolf's good looks had been not more of a curse to him than a blessing. Wolf finally opened his eyes again, looking rather tired as he continued. Toward the end, I couldn't stand college life. I was relieved at first when I joined the Knights and started living in barracks, but then I started getting all sorts of invitations for everything. From marriage interviews to casual flings. I hated it. Word's gotten around now that I'm involved with a Dowager Duchess, so they're not as persistent as before. A Dowager Duchess? Is she a relative? When Dahlia pictured a duchess, an image of an elegant and voluptuous beauty flowed into her head. Perhaps she'd read too many novels in her previous life. Before she married, my mother was a knight and she worked as a bodyguard to this duchess. I've stayed on her estate now, and then thanks to my mother's connections. When her husband died, there were young men buzzing around her like flies, swarms of them, hoping she'd take one of them under her wing. Once the rumors got out that she and I were together, that repelled most of them. I guess this is a mutual thing for both of you. Swarms of them? Dahlia struggled to picture gentlemen callers. Instead, she just saw Wolf sweeping up heaps of dead bodies with the broom. Perhaps the wine was getting to her. I think so, too. I heard that back when her husband was still alive, some fools carrying bunches of flowers even trespassed in the gardens looking for her. The Duke wasn't a very forgiving man. Some of the persistent ones might have been swatted. Permanently. You're joking. Please tell me that's a joke or I won't be able to sleep tonight. Wolf offered no reply, instead smiling cheerfully as he opened a new bottle of red wine and filled their glasses to the brim. I guess you don't mess with the Duke. But Wolf, wouldn't you count that lady as a friend? If she's a widow now, you can even be her lover if you wanted to, couldn't you? Friend is the wrong word for it. She's so far above me in all respects. If anything, she's more like my adoptive aunt. She's my mother's age, after all. She taught me everything I needed to know about being a noble, and as for being lovers, no, I can't deal with I can deal with those urges at the brothel if need be. I'm surprised at you, Volf, saying such things to a woman as casually as that. Rather than spending money in one of those places, a man with Volf's looks would surely be able to earn it. A lot, too, in a short space of time. Dahlia, from the way you're looking at me right now, I think I know exactly what you're thinking. The young knight said, staring back steadily at her. She quickly changed the subject. When you were in college, weren't you expected to find some respectable young lady to marry? I was once drugged by a so-called respectable young lady at a college tea party. At a tea party? I feel bad for him now. Very much so. Even more so than I did before. Whether she planned to have me right there or take me by her place in a carriage or something, I don't know. I was just lucky I had a friend I'd invited along. If he hadn't found me and taken me home, I don't know what would have happened. Dang. I got a pretty harsh lecture for him, too. I wasn't close with my family, so I didn't know this, but most nobles start preparing themselves for that kind of thing from a young age. That friend of mine was a noble, too, so he was able to give me advice on what drugs I should start building a resistance to and what magical accessories to buy to protect myself. Oh, okay, that explains, the anklets, then. I was really grateful. Then there was the incident with his little sister, and he never spoke to me again. You've really been through a lot. It wasn't enough to make anyone lose their trust in women, their trust in people, even. Worse still, despite being one of the Earl's sons, it seemed Volf was barely considered a member of the family. It must have been incredibly hard for him when he had no one to turn to for advice. So to be honest, my relationships have been pretty pitiful so far. It's only since joining the Beast Hunters that I've made a handful of friends who I can really talk to. I've turned into a complete coward who's incapable of trusting women. The only useful talent I have is slaying monsters. If I hadn't met you as Dolly first, I don't think I'd ever been able to talk to you like this. That is true. Even while he put himself down, Volf's demeanor betrayed the pain he clearly felt inside, his hands clasped together in his lap. Well, now you know exactly what I am. Not really the kind of man you'd want to involve yourself with, am I? I disagree, Dahlia replied, shaking her head. After all, where was Volf to blame in all this? Just because women were drawn to him on account of his good looks, that didn't make him responsible for their actions. Volf was the one who suffered more than anyone else. Besides, as far as romance goes, my life's hardly been a perfect example either. Really? I mean, the only thing we know of right now is Tobias, and we know what happened with that. Ah, you mean your fiancé and his true love. It seemed as though no one around her would refer to Tobias by name lately. Well, it was preferable to hearing it over and over. Yes, him. Our father's deaths meant our engagement drew out for a whole 2 years. The day before our wedding, I went to the new house we built together, only to find he was already keeping his new fiancée there. Her clothes and things were inside my furniture. Then the next day, he turned up on my doorstep, demanding his engagement bracelet back so he could give it to her. I think you've earned the right to smack that man in the face. I agree completely. I wish she would. Just to get it out, just to get some kind of closure for that. In fact, you ought to take a run at it and suck it with all you got. I want to see that. I want to see somebody do that to him. He deserves it. Volf declared firmly, his golden eyes were deadly serious. You know, I just didn't care enough for that. So that's why I think she hasn't really had any romantic encounters, including that guy, because I wouldn't even count him as romantic. Even though I've been at his side for 2 years, I've never been in love with him. That's what I'm saying. This is exactly what I'm saying, so I don't think you can really say that. Even when I was in college, love felt like this distant, vague idea that I never really understood. Now that I'm single again and have time to concentrate on my tool making, I'm enjoying life a lot more. After I broke up the engagement, I realized that falling in love probably just isn't in my makeup. I see. It seemed that Volf understood her. She was surprised at how easily she was able to explain her feelings. She'd been struggling to get her head around it up until now. Perhaps she had the wine to thank for that. Back in college, were you majoring in magical tool-making studies, Wolf asked? That's right, I spent my days studying in the magical tool research laboratory. Then when I came home, I took care of the chores and helped my father with his tool-making. I made time for my own research, too. You certainly kept yourself busy. I did, but whenever I had some time off, my friends and I would go out to eat, go on shopping trips, have sleepovers, that kind of thing. Huh, that sounds really nice. Despite his fine looks, noble birth, and prestigious occupation, it seemed Wolf had missed out on many of the experiences most people fondly remembered from their youth. He was looking at Dahlia with envy, and she couldn't help but pity him. I think the first time I went out to town with a friend from the Knights, he used me as bait to pick up girls. Of course. I would have dropped that guy like a hot potato. You're better off without friends like that. He's not a bad guy. He says things to me these days like a man needs a woman like he needs air to breathe, and spends every spare coin he has on his girlfriends. Girlfriends. As in more than one. So I wonder if the girls know that he has more than one. And if they do, okay, whatever. At least he's doing the city's economy some good. Just then, Wolf suddenly glared at something across the room. He raised one hand as though to shield his eyes as he took a swig of wine. Glancing in the same direction, Dahlia noticed Wolf was sitting opposite the open window. His face would have been reflecting in the glass. Do you dislike your own face that much? She asked before she could stop herself. He'd shielded his eyes the manner one protects a wound. I hate it. He smiled pleasantly as he replied, but his expression was somewhat tinged with anger. Of course, he has had bad experiences based on his good looks, so of course he wouldn't like it. He drained his glass and his expression too became empty. When I was younger, I was once taken to the temple to see if my eyes were charmed. I wanted to be cured, but they told me there was no charm in my eyes. When I asked the priest why I was born with these eyes, he said it was surely a blessing from the gods. These eyes of gold will draw the goodwill of those around you. Goodwill, right? Lust to be more like it. Yeah, I have to agree on that one. Though his face remained impassive, it felt as though he were on the verge of tears. From what he told Dahlia, it seemed those beautiful golden eyes were nothing more than a curse that gnawed away at him. If there was a way for you to hide your eyes from people, would you do it? Without a doubt. That sounds like something a witch would ask, though. Wolf looked back at her with uncertainty. I'm no witch, just a magical toolmaker. But it might just be possible for me to make something that could grant your wish. Why don't you come down to the workshop with me? We can bring the wine. Glasses in hand, the two of them descended the stairs to Dahlia's workshop. I think I'm going to end this one off here. I'll see you guys in the next video.